petition and pay a new application fee. So it has to be, so that's a new, $320, so it has to be enough time to make it worth it. You wouldn't want to do it for 2 or 3 days.
And you have to provide the proof, or they have it on their system when you left them.
Well, you tell them, they look at your passport, but their system is not always, they're working on this, but they're not always that good. They're more relying on you than you would think. And I find that fascinating, because I'll have cases that I file, and they'll issue what's called an RFE, which is a request for evidence, and they'll say, like they'll ask something about the person's status. What status were you in between X date and X date? And I'm thinking, well, why do I have to provide this? You have this. It's your information. You're the agency that takes care of this, but not that well. So, all right. So this is another thing. Let's say that you have an H-1B and you start the whole green card process. And once I get to the green card process, you'll see that it's a time-consuming, tedious process. And in some cases, it can take many years, and I'll be explaining why that is. But if you have a green card case pending, and you're at a certain place in that case, which is too technical to explain here, but if you're procedurally at a certain spot, that's how long it's pending, you can get extra time on that H-1B. So you can actually go beyond the 6 years if you have a pending green card case. And I didn't say this before, but if you have questions while I'm talking, feel free to interrupt, because I don't mind. I prefer it that way, than otherwise you might forget. Okay, so now, for those of you who have an H-1B, they're employer specific. So you apply and you get this approval notice from CIS. It's called an I-797, and it says that this approval pertains to this particular employer and to this particular employee. And what that means is that pursuant to that, you can only work for that employer, nobody else. So it's not like you get an H-1B with RF CUNY and you can go get a job that's being paid on City College's payroll. So, and that's a little bit inconvenient, but it's not so bad, because they permit what's called concurrent H-1Bs. So that means you can have more than one of them. So let's say you're working here at City College part-time, and a professor somewhere, I don't know, in Brooklyn offers you a part-time research position, and it's going to be on RF CUNY's payroll. That's okay, as long as you get another H-1B with RF CUNY as the sponsor. And you can hold both of those and have the 2 jobs at the same time. Okay. And then another thing, and I guess this is already covered, but part-time is allowed on H-1Bs. So that's a benefit. Yeah.
How about the grant money? Like sometimes we mention common salary in the grant, and how does it work? Some grants come through CUNY, but some external agencies, they are willing to pay common salary, but not necessarily through the RSU.
Yeah, it goes for, it really has to do with who you're going to get the paycheck from. So if you're not going to get the paycheck from RF CUNY, you're really supposed to have an H-1B from that other employer. I mean, and I know, having worked for RF CUNY, that this is like a big problem. And you don't want to get a visa if you're only going to give them like one check that's not RF CUNY payroll. So that's kind of part of the problem with the system.
Do you know what happens to like state grants, like NSF or NIH grants? They always come to you.
Well, I know a lot of them do, but I'm not, on that end of it to know if all of them do. That part I'm not, I've never completely understood the money part. Maybe Adam does, I don't know.
Yeah, I missed the question. What was that?
If big grants like NSF grants, do they all come through RF CUNY?
Yeah, they all go through our.
Excuse me,
All right.
I've got a question. So does City College apply part-time H-1B for people? What kind of positions are there?
Yeah, I don't know what City College's policy is. See, I only know that RF CUNY applies for the H-1B on behalf of the employees. And when I was there at RF, my understanding was that City College was not doing it for their employees. But do you know, Adam, if there's
Not City College specifically, that would be more RF.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a problem. And it's a shame, because it's not a difficult thing. If they just hired somebody who could do it, it's not, there's no,
Well, City College will process H-1Bs.
Right.
But I don't know whether they do it for part-time employees.
Yeah, I have no idea what that policy is. Yeah, because I think it's also changed from time to time. I think it
No, I
is.
have an H-1B application for it for City College now.
Right.
But it's only for full-time employee. I don't know what they do for part-time.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Can one people hold two full-time H-1B just simultaneously? One people
Well, you
hold-
see, that's the thing. Yeah, they allow concurrent H-1Bs, but you have to have a petition that's believable. So
Yeah,
if you
right.
if you put in for two full-time jobs, they're going to be like, well, how are you going to do that? I mean, there aren't enough hours in the week for you to work 80 hours. So then they might question you. You'll get a request for evidence and say, you know,
So that means, what I heard is City College never do part-time petition.
Right.
So that means if you work for CUNY, you can never get a paycheck from City College. You can never get it. Because
well, if they won't get the
theoretically-
H-1B, yeah. I mean, what they could do now, there's all kinds of ways that employers have around this that, you know, I just close my, I pretend I don't know. But they could conceivably, City College could just give the money to RF CUNY and RF CUNY pays you. But that's, you know, I don't get involved in that part of it.
All right.
Did I have another question?
Just a quick one, the concurrent H-1Bs, is that sort of a formality, is it very much a formality, you don't have to go through much?
No, it's not a formality. You have to show them all over again that this is truly a specialty job. Yeah, yeah.
And in the situation, I know we're not talking about J1s today, but are JVs, is it similar in a J1 situation? Do you need to get concurrent if you want to be paid from two separate sources?
You know what? The student advisors know more about that than me. My understanding was that with a J, the school had to have a program, and then once you got that J, you had to keep working for the school. But I'm not certain about that.
Okay.
Do I have any student advisors here who know the answer?
We have actually one professor at City College today who's also teaching at NYU. So we can add another site of activity for a day.
Thank you. Okay, now another thing is that H-1Bs are portable, and this goes to the question I had earlier about, you know, if you're stuck with the sponsor, you know, and this was, it used to be that way, you were stuck with the sponsor. And this was something they changed the law to try to help people out. Okay, so what you have to understand is when you first get an H-1B, let's say you're going from OPT to an H-1B, the employer has to wait until the petition is actually approved before they can start to pay you. And that can take anywhere from 1 to 6 months. And now if you pay an extra $1,000, they'll give you an answer in 15 days. But for the normal fee, you have to wait to be approved. So that could be pretty inconvenient. I mean, maybe the employer doesn't want to wait around for your H-1B to be approved. So, but the next time you want one, or you already have one and now you want to change jobs. You want to, let's say you were at the University of Colorado and now you come to CUNY. What happens is CUNY applies for you, they put in a petition. As soon as they get a receipt notice, they can put you on the payroll, even though the case has not yet been approved. So that's called portability, and that gives people more flexibility, more on an even playing field with other, you know, with other employees who don't have visa issues. So it's a way of making you less attached to that sponsor.
Just to see if I understood correctly. So if let's say now I'm on a J1 visa and my employer wants to, that now sponsors me for the J1, wants also to sponsor me to get the H1B. So there will be a time while I wait for the approval of the H1 that I cannot be paid from the
Yes.
employer.
Exactly, unless they pay for premium processing. But if you know when your J is up, they can just do it 6 months ahead of time. You can't do it 6 months is the soonest you can do it, but they can apply for that H-1B 6 months ahead of when your app is going to expire, so that your H-1B will start when it's on the day.
Okay, so so if I apply before my J1 expires, then I can be paid in the while I wait.
Yeah, just make sure you do it like 6 months ahead. So you're certain that it's gonna
I
get
thought that I
approved.
couldn't be paid anyway, even
No,
if
no.
my J1
Just
was
you have to plan.
valid. Sure.
Yeah, you have to plan for it. All right. Did I have something else? All right. Okay, now, most of you have probably heard about this, that there's a cap on H-1Bs of $65,000 a year. There is 65,000 available H-1Bs a year. And depending on the economy, this can be pretty problematic. When in a normal economy,